Srimati Didi ki jai. Vasanti Didi ki jai. Shri Gaudiya Vedanta Outreach Center ki jai. So I'm going to share the shloka now. Dandavat pranam to all the Vaishnavas who have joined during the kirtan. Satya Didi, Champatilata Didi. I see Nilambari Didi from Austin, Gorangi, my dear cousin, my sweet sister. Ruk Manjari, Haribol, Rohit, Radhakrishnan.
Hari Priya. Hari Priya, see there from Austin?
Yeah, I saw Hari Priya.
Hari Priya.
Somewhere. Yes,
Priyasi.
there she is. All right, let's load the shloka. Verse 3. And Subhadra, are you there? Subhadra Didi? Did I not see her? You can open your microphone. Haribo, we can't hear you. Huh? Let me turn up my volume. Yes, I can hear you now. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We'll do line by line all together. Come by me.
Sorry, everybody. Well, making you all dizzy, huh?
Do you know this? Okay, so.
Subhadra in here?
Shri Manah Shiksha ki jai, Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai. Yadi chera vasam braja bhubi saragam pratijanur. Subhadra.
Yadi chera vasam braja bhubi saragam pratijanur. Yubadvandvam tachet Paricharitumara dabhilase. Yuvadvandvam tachet Paricharitumara dabhilase. Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamihatasya Grajamapi. Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganamihatasya Shvutang premna nityam smaranamatadattvam shrinumana. Shvutang premna nityam smaranamatadattvam shrinumana. Jai, could you please read the English? My dear mind, please hear me. If you're eager to gain residence in Braj on the platform of Pragatmika Bhakti, and if you desire to obtain the direct service of Nava Jugala Kishore, Sri Radhakrishna, then birth after birth, always distinctly remember and bow down with great love to Sri Swarup Damodar Goswami, Sri Rup Goswami, his elder brother Sri Sanatan Goswami, and all other associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are the recipients of his mercy.
Shri Swarup Damodar Goswami ki jai. Shri Rup Goswami ki jai. Shri Sanatan Goswami ki jai. So now I'll stop the screen share. And today is the final conclusion of our summary study of the third verse of Sri Manah Shiksha, Divine Instructions to the Mind. In the last two meetings, we read from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who quoted Srila Rupa Goswami's definition. What is rag? What is raganuga? What is ragatmika? Who is eligible for raganuga bhakti? Who is eligible for Vaidhi bhakti? And what we did not go in detail to was, now he describes towards the end of this commentary, what is raganuga sadhana? How do you practice that? How does such a person who's eligible for raganuga bhakti do sadhana? So I've requested Srimati Syamarani Didi to comment on verse 3 and to specifically go in more detail about how a sadhak practices on the path of raganuga bhakti, so we have our goal in mind. The other thing we did on the first day of this verse 3 is we discussed the glories of Sri Swarup Damodar and Rupa and Sanatan, and why why this Vraja Prem and Ragatmika Bhakti is only available in the Sampradaya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One example that our Gurudev often gives, he says, Swarup Damodar and Rup and Sanatan, they are the Bhandari. That means like the treasurer. They are the storekeepers of this transcendental ras and of Ragatmika Bhakti. So there's no question of getting it anywhere else. One must approach them and weep and pray every day, bowing down with great love for them to sprinkle their mercy upon us. And like a Bhandari means a treasurer. If anyone's ever lived in a temple, perhaps they'll know the temple treasurer, you cannot get anything unless you go through the temple treasurer, whatever you need. So in this case, our temple treasurer is Swarup Damodar Goswami especially, and Rup Sanatan, and it won't be possible to get anything in this grand temple of prem, divine love, without their mercy and shelter and blessings. So with no further ado, I would pass it over now to our beloved and very honored Srimati Syamarani Didi. Haribol.
Haribol.
Do you prefer that microphone than the holding the one?
Doesn't matter.
As you like.
Agyanam timirandasya Jnananjana salakaya Chaksurunmilitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. First I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Diksha Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Astotra Sat Shri Srimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Astotra Sat Shri Srimad, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, to all of our Guru Varga and all the beautiful assembled devotees. So I'm very happy to see you all again, some after a long time. As Manjari Didi mentioned, we'll be reading from Srila Rupa Goswami's 3 verses explaining the process of Raganugasaran, and also very quickly summarizing what you've all done in the last days. Now I look around and I see a lot of scholars here, so I would like to suggest that we memorize these few verses, because throughout our life we'll be speaking to ourselves. We always speak to ourselves, and we'll also be speaking to others, especially those who ask us questions about what is Raganuga Bhakti, what is Ragatmika Bhakti, what is Vaidhi Bhakti, what is the relationship, isn't Raganuga Bhakti Sahajism, and so many questions. So in order to absolutely perfectly be able to answer these questions, all we have to do is memorize these verses, because they tell everything. Also, this 3rd verse, which says that if you want that, if you have a desire to serve Radha and Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan, and if you want to live there, then what to do? Birth after birth, distinctly remember and bow down. So this is the first of 3 verses in Manah Siksha, which discuss the absolute importance, imperative importance of glorifying, remembering, praying to our previous acharyas for their mercy to be able to enter into the realm of anything, the realm of even pure Vaidhi Bhakti, without offenses, without anarthas, free from lust, anger, greed, and so on. The second verse, the second of the three, is verse 5, which says that lust, anger, greed, and so on are like a band of dacoits which assail one on the open road of material life. So therefore, O mind, if you want to be free from the torturous ropes that are killing us by binding us around the neck, and these dreadful ropes are made of wicked deeds, mental and physical, then grievously cry out to the powerful and merciful devotees who are the protectors of the path of devotion leading to Krishna. And then verse 7, O mind, if you want to become free from the abominable, dog-eating woman of the desire for prestige, which is dancing in my heart, then what? Always remember and serve the immeasurably powerful commanders in the army of Sri Krishna, the beloved devotees of the Lord. And these three verses are very often quoted by our Shiksha Guru Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, especially on the titis, the appearance and disappearance days of our previous acharyas. So, in summary, who's doing the bhajan darpana digdarshani vritti? Whose vritti is that? Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur's commentary. So he's saying that there's an objection, and I wasn't 100% satisfied with the answer that because they're the storekeepers, therefore only through Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and their line can you get, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line, can you get this Ragatmika, that is, what kind of Ragatmika? There's also, Hanuman is also a Ragatmika Bhakta. And Satyabhama and Rukmini are also Ragatmika Bhaktas. So what's the difference? Why are they called Ragatmika? And the residents of Vrindavan are also called Ragatmika. Because one is called Aiswarya Mishra, or Aiswarya Mai Ragatmika Bhakti, which means that it's mixed with opulence. But if anybody wants this pure Kevala Ragatmika Bhakti that's only found in Braj, how do we know? We say that because they are the storekeepers, therefore you can only get it through them. But how do we know? What is the evidence that they're the storekeepers? It's also a matter of sukritis and sanskars, which give us the faith that we have in the words of our Purva Acharyas, that this is so. In addition, also with faith in our Purva Acharya, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who wrote in his trance, not exactly wrote, but he was receiving in his trance the Navadvipdam Parikrama, the first Navadvipdam Parikrama, which was carried down by Srila Jiva Goswami, led by Sri Nityananda Prabhu. And there is explained that all the four Sampradaya Acharyas met with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu before his appearance, meaning as a dream or as a vision, or he just appeared to them before his actual appearance 500 years ago. And this Navadvipdam Parikrama explains their life, their qualities, their history, how they came to get the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and how he instructed them to preach a certain type of bhakti. Sometimes, like with Sri Ramanujacharya, he said, you can do Raganuga Bhakti, but teach your disciples Dasyabhav. So they're all under the guidance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and their aim and objective and their methods are different. Their upasanas, their worshipable deities, are different, and their method to attain that is different. But again, it comes down to faith. Why should I believe Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur? Why should I believe Srila Rupa Goswami? That comes by, there is evidence, but what evidence do I want to accept? Even, I once asked Gurudev, I told Gurudev that I can tell that, like our Prabhupada, you are an Uttama Bhakta. So he said, how do you know? So I said, well, because of the lakshana, because of the symptoms. I wanted to show him that I knew Sanskrit. Because of the lakshana, the symptoms. He said, oh, you're qualified to recognize the symptoms? You don't even know that your Srila Prabhupada is an Uttama Mahabhagavad, because you can't recognize symptoms. When you're there, when you're at a much higher stage of asakti and in bhav, then you can actually recognize. Similarly, we're hearing so much evidence, but ultimately it depends on sukriti, sanskars, which lead to a particular kind of faith. So, in summary, the objection is it only in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line? And this verse answers that. If you want to serve Radha and Krishna eternally in Goloka Vrindavan and you want to live there, then take shelter of his line. Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, and all the devotees who are recipients of Mahaprabhu's mercy. Then, and again, these verses, I myself only know some of them, so I'm personally going to be memorizing them, being stimulated by having read this commentary, this vritti, which has these verses, and everything is compact, all the answers. So what is with rag, with ragatmika bhakti, which is the unquenchable thirst to attain the object of love, and that leading to full absorption in him. Like, I think perhaps Manjari, you gave the example of the white cloth soaked in the red dye. You heard that one, and gradually soaking, wringing out, soaking, the white cloth becomes red, fully saturated with the thoughts of the object of love, with an unquenchable thirst to serve him and attain him. So then the gradual process of attaining prem is given by Srila Rupa Goswami, whether it's in Vaidhi Bhakti or in Raganuga Bhakti, that is Ado Shraddha Tato Sadhu Sangha. First, what is the Ado? Did you explain what Ado is?
Previous to Shraddha. We didn't go in detail.
Previous to Shraddha. Okay, so what is previous to Shraddha? Brahmanda Bhumite Konya Bhagavana Jeev. Guru Krishna Kripaya Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. We're wandering throughout all the species of life since time immemorial in 8,400,000 species, going sometimes to hellish planets, sometimes to heavenly planets. So in all those lives, we collect sukritis. And after millions of births of sukritis, bhaktistu bhagavata bhakti sanjaya, sangena parijayate. After millions of births of collecting sukritis, one gets in good contact with a pure devotee, and by his association, one becomes a pure devotee. So Ado is all that. It's all those births of collecting sukritis to the point where one can meet a pure devotee and get contact, and by him, initiation or just very shiksha, taking his shiksha with shraddha, then with faith, then ado shraddha. Shraddha is it's the conviction that simply by serving Krishna, all other ambitions and desires will be fulfilled. But I'm not going into all that right now because this part is just a summary. Then Srila Rupa Goswami, you can see why in his Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, in the introduction, Srila Prabhupada says that Srila Rupa Goswami is the superintendent of the Krishna consciousness movement. Everything, all of the acharyas in our line are following his teachings. So he discusses the difference between Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. One is impelled by the fear of not following the injunctions of Scripture, and duty, a sense of duty. I am part and parcel of Krishna, so my duty is to serve him. So following the strict injunctions of the Scriptures, I perform Vaidhi Bhakti, and it's without affection, without love. And Raganuga Bhakti is the intense greed to follow one of the residents of Vrindavan, who are oceans, an ocean of the mood that's in my Swarup by nature, that Krishna implanted in my constitutional form at the time of creation. So I'm definitely going to be memorizing, and I really pray that you do too, because you'll become a big scholar by doing that. Okay, so now, what hasn't been discussed in detail in the previous Manah Shiksha class is Srila Rupa Goswami's conclusions regarding the methods for performing Raganuga Sadhan. So that's stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1, 2, 294, and 5. Krishna smaram janam chasya praistam nija samihitam tatat kataratas chasau kuryad vasam bharje sada. One should constantly remember one's dearest, eternally fresh youth, Sri Nandanandan, and the beloved associates of Krishna who are possessed of the identical mood for which one aspires. Okay, so we're beginning with Krishna Smaram, remembering Smarana, Krishna, and Janam Chasya. Janam means his associates, also remembering his associates. Which associates? Praistam Nija. Nija means my own. So who is an ocean of the mood for which I aspire according to my Swarup, not according to my constitution. What are the constituents with which I was manufactured? Everything is there in seed. Then, tatat kata ratas cha sao. Their kata, what are they doing together? How are they serving Krishna? In the case of a Rupanuga sadhak, of course, did they hear the difference between Rupanuga and Raganuga?
Not in detail.
Okay, so this won't be too much detail, but let's say if I asked you, is Lalita Devi a Raganuga or Rupanuga? What would you say?
No, Ragatmika.
Very good. Manjari answered correctly. She said neither of the above. It's Ragatmika. And so why not Rupa Nuga? Because she's not a follower of Rupa Manjari or Rupa Goswami. Actually, Rupa Manjari is the head of the Manjaris in Lalita's group, who's the head of the subgroups, the Gana of Srimati Radhika, who is Yuteswari, the supreme controller of a yut or a complete group. And Lalita Gan, and then Rupa Manjari is the head of the Manjaris in that. Also, Lalita, Vishaka, Mother Yasoda, they're in a higher rank. Lalita and Vishaka, Chitra, Chambaklata, they're in a higher rank. They're Srimati Radhika's friends, and Rupa, Rati, and so on are her maidservants. But we find in Srila Raghunath Das Goswami's Valabkusmanjali, Padab Jayo Tavavina Vadadasyameva Nanyat Kadab. Really desire is to become your maidservant. And they have special facilities that the Priya Narmasakis don't have. Like, I don't want to get into too much detail, but they can enter in and serve in situations where the Priya Narmasakis hesitate to go. That's stated in a verse by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami in his taking shelter of the Manjaris headed by Sri Rupa Manjari. So, difference between Rupa Nuga and Raga Nuga is that Raga Nuga applies to all, as it's stated here, agreed to follow any one of the associates of Krishna. Then who are oceans of the mood for which I aspire? So that's anyone. It could be Subal, it could be Mother Yasoda, it could be, who else is there? Could be the friends, could be the servants, or it could be Lalita and Vishaka. So those are four. Then Rupanuga only applies to those who are following in the mood of Srila Rupa Goswami and Sri Rupa Manjari. And that is a division of Madhurya Ras called Tat Tat Bhavam Ichatmika, or not directly relating, not a direct relationship with Krishna, but a relationship with Krishna through Srimati Radhika, always desiring to live with her, to serve her, and to bring Krishna under her control. So Tat Kata, like if we're in the line of Rupa Goswami, if we're in the line of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his followers, then Tat Kata, Ratas Chasau, then that means hearing and remembering the services of Rupa Manjari and her associates. We also want to remember the services of all the associates, because we have relationship with all of them. Like, for example, Raghunath Das Goswami explains in Valabkusmanjali that in his mood of Rati, in his form as Rati Manjari, he goes with the other Manjaris to Nanda Bhavan every morning, and every evening, even when Radhika doesn't go, they go on her behalf. And they fall down at the feet of Mother Yasoda, and she embraces them and asks, "How's my darling Radhika?" And they say, "Just fine." So there's a relationship with all others, and gradually we'll get to know that. So we have the same relationship with the other Ragatmika associates that Rupa Manjari does, and that Guru Manjari does. So, Kuryad Vasam Burjai Sada, and always living in Braj. And if it's not possible to live in Braj physically, then living there by mind. I was just hearing, I hope that all of you are recipients of the daily Gaudiya Rasamrita videos and audios that the audio seva team sends out. So just a very recent one, I think it was today's, Gurudev was speaking about, not in this verse, not in this in context of Manashiksha, but in general, he was saying that if you can't live in Braj physically, then live there by mind. No passport, no visa, no money required. Wherever you are,
No vaccination.
no vaccination. Wherever you are, you can be in Braj by heart. So then the second verse, there's 3 verses, which Srila Viswanath Chakravarti Thakur quotes in his Raghavartma Chandrika, which is really a must-read. Srila Gurudev was very strong about everyone reading Raghavartma Chandrika, which means the moonbeam that sheds light on the path of Raganuga Bhakti. And then another must-read as a sister book, if you're interested in this topic, is Hidden Path of Devotion, which is Srila Gurudev's giving darshan to my GBC ISKCON Guru godbrothers, who are asking him questions based on their reading of Raghavartma Chandrika. 4 very interesting, exceptionally interesting, and palatable darshans or conversations. So he discusses elaborately these 3 verses, which are the constituents of Raganuga sadhana. The second verse is Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tatbhava lipsuna karya brajalokan sarataha. A sadhak who has greed for Raganuga Bhakti. And what is the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti?
Lobha.
Lobha, the greed to have it. Srila Gurudev gave the example of a ugly, lame, toothless, poor man who's standing in a procession where Princess Diana, her bubble car, is riding along, or say was riding along. And as soon as he sees her, he goes like that to follow her. And he has a desire, I want to marry her. He's not qualified to marry her, but there's no qualification for that greed. And it's the greed that is the qualification. So a sadhaka who has greed for Raganuga Bhakti should serve Sri Krishna both in the sadhak roop and the siddha roop, in accordance with the profound sentiments of the eternal residents of Braj, who possess the same mood for which he aspires. Very interesting for so many reasons. One is, although Srila Gurudev quoted these verses in New Jersey once, in the New Jersey ISKCON temple, trying to help the devotees understand that even in the neophyte stage, he was quoting Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Instruction, the purport to verse 8, where Prabhupada was saying that even in the neophyte stage, one can follow these verses. So some of Srila Gurudev's disciples were thinking that we can do that because we're neophytes and we can follow these 3 verses. So, I just wanted to mention that one half of that, Seva Sadhaka Rupena. Yes, we can do many of the things. We can't do all of the things, but we can do many of the things that Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and the 6 Goswamis have done in their sadhana. We can observe Ekadasi. We can, what else can we do? We can offer so many obeisances. We can chant so many rounds. We can wake up for Mangalartik. All those things. But the Siddha Rupena Chatrahi, Siddha Rupena, means that I have to have already realization of my internally perfected form so that I can serve Rupa Manjari. If I'm serving Rupa Manjari in my sadhak form by remembering what she does, for example, so she, in Radharani's courtyard, she may throw mud and water and twigs and sticks all over Radharani's courtyard in the middle of the night, of course when the in-laws aren't there, in order for Radharani to practice going out to meet Krishna in a stormy night. And then Rupa Manjari might put a photograph of a snake there. Why? Because they didn't have photos in those days, but a painting, a drawing, so that Radharani could practice not being afraid if she sees a snake in the forest. So now I can remember that. That's how I was able to tell you, because I remembered it. But my remembrance of it is on the platform of Vaidhi Bhakti. It's not even Seva Sadhaka Rupena. It's Vaidhi Bhakti, because I am on the platform of Vaidhi Bhakti, although I want to come to Raganuga Bhakti. So I try with my uncontrolled mind, because I once asked Gurudev in 1992, so you're going to train us in Raganuga Bhakti? He said, you don't understand. Raganuga Bhakti is lakhs times harder than Vaidhi Bhakti. It's not just a matter of increasing your rounds or memorizing something. So if I'm just remembering intellectually, that's not Seva Sadhaka Rupena, because Seva Sadhaka Rupena is following the sadhak forms of the Goswamis and their followers. And then Siddha Rupena means that I've realized my soul and I'm on late Asakti or Bhava Bhakti, where I have 3 stages. Antardasa, where I completely forget this material body and I'm serving. And then Ardya Bahya Dasa, the stage, where I lose that vision and I'm weeping and rolling on the ground. And then Bahya Dasha, where I'm still feeling intense separation, but I can function in this world.
5
I can
minutes.
speak. So we have 5 more minutes for this part. So yes. So Siddha Rupena is not an ordinary thing. It comes basically in Bhava Bhakti, above Raganuga Sadhak. And it may also come in the later stages of Asakti, when one gets a semblance of his own Siddhadeha. And at that point, of course, I can think of what my Siddhadeha is doing. I can do it in my Siddhadeha. So, the Sadhak Rupa refers to the physical body in which one is presently situated, and the Siddha Rupa refers to the internally contemplated physical, spiritual form which is suitable to serve Krishna according to one's cherished desires. Right now I'm serving with this robot body. One should serve Krishna. Should means it's imperative, but it's imperative, try for it. By following, not imitating, under the guidance of Krishna's beloved Shri Radhika, Chandravali, Lalita Vishaka, Rupa Manjari, and others, as well as the followers in the sadhak form of Rupa Sanatan and Raghunath Das. Did you read these? Actually read the commentary?
No, we didn't do these.
Okay. So a sadhak of the sentiment of servitude should serve in accordance with the mood of Krishna's associates in Dasya Bhav, like Raktak and Patrak. They carry Krishna's flute or pan, tambul. Let's see. A sadhak of Sakya Bhav should follow, or would follow, Sridham. If he's actually a sadhak, he automatically would, not that he should. Sridham, Subal, and others. A sadhak of Vatsalya Bhav would serve according to the mood of Nanda and Yasoda. In Siddha Deha, the perfected internal spiritual body, they would offer mental, and this is not just mental, of thinking with the material mind, but it means that he's in his Siddha Roop. He already has a Siddha Roop internally. He's still impeded by the material body, and that's why he's in Bhav and not Prem. And therefore it's called Swarup Siddha Bhakti. Siddha Swarup Bhakti. But it's not Vastu Siddhi, it's Swarup Siddhi, because it's in the stage of Bhav. And Vastu Siddhi begins when I'm just about to come to Prem, and I take my next, because this body cannot tolerate Prem, it would explode. So the Bhav, matured Bhav sadhak, takes his next birth in any of the planets where Krishna is performing his pastimes in any of the universes, and takes birth in the womb of a gopi and starts getting trained up by the gopis. So just very quickly, because there's 2 minutes left, the third verse is Shravanot Kirtanadini Vaidya Bhaktuditani Tu Yan Yan Gani Chatanyatra Vigyayani Manishivi. The limbs of bhakti, such as hearing, chanting, and taking shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, which have already been described in regard to Vaidhi Bhakti, are also useful and necessary in Raganuga Bhakti. But judicious sadhaks will adopt only those limbs that nourish their specific bhav, and that gets into a whole other topic of their 5 limbs of Raganuga Bhakti. What is the intrinsic mood of Raganuga Bhakti? What is the most favorable? What is helpful? What is neutral? And what is unfavorable? Okay, but here this is not described in detail, but there's a summary as follows. A sadhak should aspire for Braj Bhakti. Who aspires for Braj Bhakti should not undertake those limbs that are opposed to that mood, like ahangraho pasana, to consider himself non-different in all respects to his object of worship. Mudras, following all the different procedures of intertwining the fingers during the worship. Nyas, the breathing procedures known as pranayam. That doesn't mean not to do pranayam. It just means not to take pranayam as your spiritual practice, but you can do it for your health. And that's not at all unfavorable. That's like running or stretching. Meditation on Dwarka and worship of Sri Rukmini and other queens of Dwarka. We do that initially, and Krishna can do all these wonderful feats like showing the universal form during his residence in Dwarka. Then what to speak of how high Radha and Krishna's amorous pastimes are. When I was first coming to Gurudev, I asked him, is it okay when I'm reading Nectar of Devotion just to read the conjugal sections? And he said, no, you'll be destroyed. So after surpassing the stage of sadhana, one enters into the stage of bhav, which is also known as rati, and then that's described, and we ran out of time.
Well, we'll conclude with the sugar cane.
Conclude with the sugar cane.
How rati develops into prem.
All right, so I'll read that too.
The conclusion there.
Yeah. So samartarati. Samartarati is the prem of the gopis, which is much higher than the prem of the Mahishis or queens of Krishna, and much higher than what to speak of the prem of Kubja, which is Vikrist, which means like really low class. So Samartarati, which actually controls Krishna, gradually matures and becomes transformed into Mahabhav. Therefore, liberated souls and the topmost devotees strive to attain this rati. Rati gradually intensifies into prem, which is known by different names in accordance with the distinctive characteristic of each successive stage. It is thus identified as prem, sneha, man, pranaya, rag, anurag, and bhav. This bhav is not the same as the bhav that precedes prem. It's the bhav that precedes mahabhav and is advanced from anurag. Now, in the back of Srila Gurudev's Shikshastakam book, there's definitions of each of these stages which will help us out to understand them. This development is compared to the transformation of sugarcane seeds into sugarcane plants, sugarcane juice as it gets more and more condensed, molasses, crude sugar, refined sugar, and sugar candy, and rock candy. In this analogy, rati is compared to the sugarcane seeds because it's the seed of prem, or the prem ankur, the seed of prem, or the first ray of the sun of prem. Prem is compared to the sugarcane plant. Just as all 6 stages from sugarcane juice to rock candy are transformations of sugarcane only, all 6 stages from sneha to bhav are the distinctive transformations of prem. Therefore, learned authorities in the scriptures use the word prem in a general sense to refer to all 6 stages. Am I allowed to give homework?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Who wants to do it?
Does anybody want to do homework? Well, the previous homework, which everything, of course, is
3
voluntary,
shlokas.
is to learn those verses and the translations.
3 shlokas.
And the next homework would be to learn the meanings of sneha, man, and so on. Therefore, learned authorities in the scriptures use the word prem in a general sense to refer to all 6 stages. It should be noted here that the particular type of prem that Krishna has for the heroines or nayakas who are possessed of samartarati is exactly in accordance with the type of prem that arises in their heart. And I'm going to close by just sharing one instance experience that I had with Gurudev. Gurudev, this is 1992. Since our goal is to love Krishna and everything is all emotion and mood, weeping and all that, is it really necessary to learn the terms? And Srila Gurudev replied, if I tell you that Radha and Krishna are experiencing, say in the Seva Kunj painting here, which you can see something of here. If I tell you that Radha and Krishna are experiencing Kila Kinchiti Bhav, which is 7 contradictory emotions, contradictory but they all work harmoniously, what will you understand? Therefore, understanding the terms is essential. If I tell you Mother Yasoda has sneha, but she doesn't have anurag, what is the meaning to you? Okay, so we'll end here and ask if there's questions.
So we have a few questions. Thank you, Srimati Syamarani Didi. That was incredibly illuminating. And I think for all of us who have been regularly joining or watching the replays of our Manah Shiksha study group, I think that today's Harikatha really helped to drive it home and to crystallize and nutshell it, and absolutely memorizing these shlokas. I remember in Badger at the Gurukul,
even Gurudev would have little children learning these shlokas, Krishnam Janam Chasya, Krishna Smaran Janam Chasya, and so on, as well as the definition of bhakti. So by all means, it's never too late and it's never too early to learn a few shlokas. So thank you very much to the devotees who sent their questions ahead of time. We'll read these questions first, and if there's any time after, we can open it up to the group and take some more. So I think everyone can hear me okay. And this first question comes from Sri Vrinda Didi. So she gives some observations and some self-analysis, and then her question. Since I have no spiritual realization, I can only question from where I am at, trapped in this material world and steeped in Maya. So from that point, I attempt to grasp on my situation so that I can try to deal with it. Srila Prabhupada taught us repeatedly that we're not these bodies, but in truth we are pure spirit souls. However, after coming in contact with the material energy, we're now covered over by a subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego, and emotions, as well as the gross material body. I experience that sometimes emotions take over, at other times selfishness flares up, or the mind creates havoc, and since I don't have much intelligence, that remains passive. In other words, the intelligence remains passive. So, in the mood of taking my pulse to discern where I am at, this is my observation. Since I suffer from spiritual amnesia, I've forgotten who I really am. I don't know my true identity, and I don't even know my real name or my address. As I attempt to face and contemplate my anarthas and obstacles on the spiritual path, and as I attempt to navigate through this existence, it seems to me that I am possessed by the subtle and gross body. It also seems like I have a multi-personality disorder.
It sounds like one of the bhajans, doesn't it?
It sounds like a bhajan, whereby I have to talk to and appease all the other personalities, the mind, the ego, the emotions. So how does this observation that I am possessed, or I have multi-personalities with the mind, ego, and so on, how does this fit in with Manah Shiksha?
Very good question, and honesty is the best policy. So unless we do a reality check of where we are, we can't go to the next place. Like right now, I'm in Miami, and if I want to go to California, I can't go there from New York because I'm in Miami. So to honestly assess where I am is very good. And as I threw in, as Manjari was speaking, threw in the words, it sounds like a bhajan. So one of the things that helps tremendously is to take shelter of the bhajans and sing them regularly every day. Srila Gurudev said on several occasions that the most important word in our vocabulary is when. Like when oh when, kabhi habhi, when oh when will that day be mine? So I sing the songs of our Purva Acharyas, and in doing so, I pray to them that please let my mood, my heart, my mind become one with your words. Please let your heart become one with my heart, because this is your bhajan, it's not my bhajan. Please make it my bhajan. So, as Srila Prabhupada once condensedly summarized the whole process, he said, yoga means to pray to Krishna, I'm fallen, please save me. That's yoga, that's all. And then everything else is an expansion from that. So, okay, I realize that that's where I'm at, so then what to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
I pray into the bhajans, and I pray to the person who wrote the bhajans, and I sing the bhajans regularly. Also because usually the bhajans are in the first person singular, when will I? Because I've given up Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's worship, I'm willingly accepting poison, although I know it to be poison, I'm so intoxicated by it that I'm drinking that poison every moment. By singing their songs, which have potency, and which Krishna likes to listen to, because he likes to listen to the prayers of his Sharanagata devotees. In the I mode, it starts making impressions. That is, impressions, like if you keep rubbing a rope against a rock, nothing happens, but gradually something happens. It starts making an impression.
The drop of water on a stone.
So the drop of water on a stone, the drop of water from a broken tap to a stone, nothing happens, but after some time, something starts happening. So did it start happening from the last drop or the first drop? From the first drop. Then, another thing that takes away obstacles and gives us auspiciousness on our path is by, just as these 3 verses that we quoted today, not the Krishna Smaram Janam Chastyam, but the 3 Manashiksha verses, that, oh mind, I'm having this problem, therefore, oh mind, call out, therefore, oh mind, serve, therefore, oh mind, bow down and remember with great love, birth after birth. So, the Vishuddha Chaitanya Vani, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj's website or Facebook page sends out every day, every time there's a titi of another pure devotee. And so if we observe these days, just reading and remembering their glory, then they're very eager on their titis, especially to give us mercy. And if we neglect to do so, then we will find that obstacles come and auspiciousness goes away.
So,
So, keeping the goal in mind, what is the goal? We're hearing about the goal all the time from Srila Gurudev and his surroundings. Then, like you have a GPS. So, okay, I'm like that. So, I can either wallow in that, or I can, well, what do I do about it?
Mm-hmm.
Let me do something about it.
Beautiful. So in a nutshell, another way of saying that could be that the observation and the honesty about evaluating your own level and where you're at, a reality check, that's only half of the step. Then the second half to complete that step would be, as she was saying, then you take shelter of the bhajans and these prayers. So simply
and the holy name of Krishna.
And the holy name. So simply the observation and honesty in and of itself is only half of the equation. Then there has to be the then what, the next step, and that's what Manashiksha is telling us. Honor all Vaishnavas and how to honor them and how to remember Braj and so on and so forth. Beautiful. Thank you, Syamarani.
Even how to honor Vaishnavas of other sampradayas.
Yes.
Or Brahmins living in Braj who also worship demigods. And other lineages like Nityananda Parivar and Janava Parivar. How to honor. Yeah.
Beautiful question, beautiful answer. Haribol. Next question, and I see Neelambari has a question. I think we'll get to several, so we'll do our best to get to everyone in the time remaining. So the next question here is regarding association. The question is, my issue is that where I am living and attending the local temple, I don't get the same type of association as my Gurudev and his Sangha. Tulsi Arti is done a little differently. There are different bhajans, different kinds of emphasis in the Harikatha, and no one is talking about Ragamarg Bhakti. For example, the lectures seem to continuously stress how we're not these bodies, but don't go further in the teachings. I want to ask questions and learn more and develop my bhakti, but I'm terrified of ruffling feathers. How can I honor the group or the community that I am participating in, and at the same time not stagnate and not make offenses?
I think you gave the answer yourself. If you're stagnating in a group, then you might want to consider what group you want to get your inspiration from. That is, take as much of the group that you're going to that inspires you, and what bores you to death or frustrates you or makes you want to say something but hesitate to say something because you don't want to commit offenses, you may want to substitute that group's association with a group that inspires you, where you can inquire to your heart's content.
This is such a universal question across many different kinds of groups, different institutions within Gaudiya Math, within our ISKCON, within so many different branches. There's different disciples from different gurus associating in different communities all over the world. And so I'll open it up for just a couple of minutes. Does anyone want to follow up and ask along on this topic any further question or conversation? Because present here are so many different devotees from different communities.
So many beautiful devotees I see.
So any comment or question on this point?
Can I just add something?
Yes.
So Syamarani, Didi, there's so now we have options because we have online sanghas. So if I don't have a sangha that really fits my mood here, my location, is it equally as beneficial to connect through virtual sanghas?
Well, we just learned a verse the other day. Kaler doshani de rajan astihye mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangat
Param
Brajet. In this age of Kali, which is full of an ocean of faults, there is one good quality you can chant. But it has a lot of good qualities. And the other good qualities in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy is that there's virtual association. Like in Prabhupada's day, there were so many temples and you automatically could roll out of bed and there's Mangalarti for you. But in this day and age where most people live in different places, like I see Madhuri there, she lives in Boston, you live in California, Subhadra lives in Europe, and Satya lives in Portland. So we're kind of getting used to accepting as real association, virtual association. Because these bodies aren't real anyway. So if you go somewhere and you're there with the physical body, or you go to an internet thing, neither one is the person. And the sound vibration is clear in both situations, so it's wherever you're inspired.
Jai. Okay, this is my last question that was pre-sent. I hope everyone can hear me. The question is, my understanding is that Krishna has created me with a specific mood in mind he wants me to serve in, and this is my swarup. But I have no actual realization of what it is. I don't even know when my actual self is thinking or my material mind is speaking all the time. If I mentally aspire to Rupanuga Bhakti because I think I'm attracted to it, and I'm attracted to my Rupanuga Guru Varga, but it turns out that actually my Swarup is a different Raganuga mode. Is there any harm to nurture that aspiration while I'm still at this lower level? Is it clear?
I hope so. I hope it's clear. Suppose I'm going to a friend's house, or I'm going to a program, a Krishna program, and then I'm just now leaving my house. From the very moment I walk out the door, I need to know where I'm going, isn't it? And then I can get in my car and turn left or right. I can't even begin without knowing where I'm going. So real progress comes if I know what the goal is. Then progress can actually start. So even in our very newborn stage, it's very important to know the goal. Then, what was the question?
So if later on
I find out that I'm in a different rus. So in a very nice book called Swarupa of the Jiva, there's a quote from Srila Gurudev and from Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj saying essentially the same thing, that if someone comes to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement and he's actually a Ram Bhakta, then he can come up to Das Suppose even he gets the Gopal mantra, which applies to all rasas. He's getting developed in das, general das, and then when he's at a mature enough stage, then Krishna plucks him and brings him to Ayodhya and brings him to a Ram Bhakta. So there's never any harm in following the contribution, taking advantage of the contribution of that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, which no other acharya or incarnation gave before since the previous day of Brahma, which is trillions and trillions of years ago. I'll definitely make advancement in bhakti in general, and then when the time comes, even if I have a bogus guru, that's also covered by Srila Gurudev, that I just follow, and then if I'm sincere, then I chant, I follow the programs, I'm collecting Sukriti, and when the time comes, then Krishna immediately picks me up, either in this life or the next life, and gives me a bona fide guru. So everything, like if suppose I'm chanting Prema Bhakti Yaha Haite Yavidya Vinasajati to a guru who's not a Prema Bhakti, that's fine, because Baladev and Krishna, Nityananda Prabhu, they're hearing, they're accepting, because they're a Khanda Guru Tattva. And when the time comes, the next stage comes. So everything is fine. And besides that, Gurudev said that most people who come to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission are in Madhurya Ras as followers of Rupa Manjari.
Jai. Wow. I think that's a really, really deep question and deep answer. I want to go to the group now in Zoom. Nilambari Didi had her hand up. So I'm going to unmute you, Didi. Please, are you ready with your question?
I didn't have a question. I just raised my hand to say that I wanted homework.
Oh, great.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Syamarani, I'd be so blessed if you'd give me some homework.
The homework is to learn from the back of the Shikshastakam book, I believe it is, the meanings, and you'll find it in so many places in Gurudev's books and Prabhupada's books, the meanings of the different stages of prema, and also the verses that are in the purport or the commentaries of verse 3, Manah Shiksha, so that you can become a scholar in speaking to yourself and to others regarding what is Ragatmika Bhakti, what is Raganuga Bhakti, what is Vaidhi Bhakti, and what's the relationship.
Beautiful. So
Thank you.
Yeah, Jai. 3 verses in verse 3, and that starts with Krishna Smaran Janang Chasya. And
that's additional homework. I was speaking about the verses before that.
Before that?
Yeah, what is Ragatmika Bhakti? The verses that you did
Okay.
last time. What is Ragatmika Bhakti? What is Raganuga Bhakti? What is Vaidhi Bhakti? What's the relationship?
Okay, so
and what is the result?
And Rupa Manjari Didi shared the link to the PDF of the Shikshastakam book, and in the back you will find all these definition shlokas. Thank you, Rupa Manjari. That is in the WhatsApp group. If you're not in the WhatsApp group, you can look on Facebook for Manah Shiksha Mondays, and the link is there to Facebook, to WhatsApp. So please do join if you're not a regular member. I'm going to ask the people who have their hands raised first, and then I'm going to go through the chat. Rupa Manjari Didi, Haribol. Oh, we can't hear you. Unmute.
The headphones, sorry. I think Jugala Kishori Devi should probably go first because I've had some opportunity already.
Okay. Yugal Kishori, Haribol.
Hare Krishna, for now, Syamarani.
Dhanyavad.
Yeah, my question is that, I really love chanting. It's my favorite service, but then I know, prayers are very important too, but when I do the prayers, I feel like I'm not sincere enough, or maybe there's, some ego, or, not being humble or surrender enough. Would you please offer some advice on how to improve on doing prayers?
everything that you say you're not is the reason to do the prayers, because they're all prayers for that. In Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila, all of them, Premananda, they all are saying how they are wasting their life, how they are very fallen and not qualified. And so here, O Lord, is the sad story of my life, and I'm submitting it to you. So there's no question of not being qualified. But rather, on the other hand, they help us to give us the mood that we want to be in while we're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In fact, once in England, Kent, England, we were doing the morning bhajans, and Srila Gurudev was out on his morning walk. Then he came back and sat on the couch where we were singing, and he said, if you simply chant Hare Krishna, you'll be full of all material desires. Therefore we sing the bhajans, and so that the words, the mood, the goal, the humility that's expressed in the bhajans comes into our Harinam.
The songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in particular, or all?
Him, Narottam Das Thakur, all.
Okay, thank you. Beautiful question, Yugal Kishore Kishori. Thank you.
He's very smart.
The importance,
Thank you so much.
The importance of bhajans and how they nourish our chanting of japa. Rupa Manjari Didi, Haribol.
Haribol, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So I had two follow-up questions. I'm going to go in reverse order. So that last question that you answered was actually mine, and so I was wondering if I could sum up your answer, if this is just to make sure I understand it correctly, like that if I sincerely but mistakenly go to the wrong house party, I've set out from my house, I think I'm going, this has actually happened to me once. I think I know where I'm going, I have the address, and I go there, and then it's like not the right place. And I say, is this the blah 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 party? And they're like, no, this is not that party. But because it's close to the right place, they will kindly redirect me. And they'll say, actually, I know how to get there. It's not very far from here. You just have to go down the block, and then you'll be at the right place. Is that sort of the way I should feel some All right, thank you.
Yes, your analogy is very good.
So there was one more question you had, Rup Manjari, about Nyas
Yes,
and
and the
Mudra.
follow-up onto the question that was before that, which was about local and virtual, is the way, I just want to check, this is how I have been thinking of it, and so if there's any offense in that, if you can let me know. Basically, because I go to like lots of different sanghas and lots of temples and different groups, and I tend to think that, okay, in this group, they're very good at deity worship, and that's a limb of bhakti that I need to work on. So when I go there, I'll like try and understand how they do deity worship. Or in this group, they're very good at doing book distribution and service, so when I'm with them, I'm going to learn this way. But as far as like reading certain shastra or something like that, then I'm going to like reserve my heart for hanging out with, my Guru Maharaj's
Who's your Guru Maharaj?
So my Harinam Guru Maharaj is Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj, and my Diksha Gurudev, Srila Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Ballabh Tirtha Maharaj, and of course Srila Narayan Maharaj is my Shiksha Guru, and Srila Bharati Maharaj is also my Shiksha Guru.
Perfect. They're one soul and three bodies.
Four bodies. So
Four.
Is it or five if you count Srila Sridhar Maharaj? So then, it's not. I try to think of it in a not offensive way. I try not to be like, oh, you're not so good at this thing. Like, instead I try to think, oh, I'm not feeling encouraged here, or I'm not feeling inspired here. Maybe that's my fault. So I'm not gonna like try and analyze why you're not so good at the thing that I'm not inspired at. I try to focus on what I'm inspired by.
Very good, excellent.
Is that like
That's excellent.
It's okay for me to say I'm not inspired by your so-and-so's Chaitanya Charitamrita Katha.
You're not criticizing it. You're just saying my heart desires a little different angle or understanding.
Okay. That's what I think of it. Thank you.
And also, it's good that you're taking what you can. Will it be beneficial for you in each group? That's very nice. Unless the only thing,
Caveat.
what's a caveat?
Like consideration.
The only consideration would be if they're making offenses to your Guru Varga, then no matter how expert they are, you don't want that association. Rather, we offer obeisances from afar, meaning we don't think about them.
Okay. Okay, there's one last question here.
Panamali.
Evil. How can I reconcile someone's point of view that differs from what Gurudev taught if I'm not qualified?
You can ask those who you think are qualified. So how can you reconcile someone's point of view that differs? It may differ and it may not differ.
Maybe you're not understanding.
It is possible that my understanding is defective. For example, many people think that Gurudev's point of view is different from Srila Prabhupada's point of view in certain areas. So I'm prepared to spend hours with somebody to help them to understand there's no difference in the point of view. Srila Gurudev said, Prabhupada says, don't drink dirty water. And I say, drink pure water. All the words are different, but we're saying the same exact thing. So it may be that there's a difference, in which case, if it's a big enough difference, I may want to consider my association. And it may not be a difference at all.
Beautiful. Thank you, Syamarani Didi. Jai. That ends our program. We close with a kirtan. If you can stay with us, please do. We've selected a kirtan that is, Syamarani Didi earlier was discussing this 8th shloka of Upadeshamrita. Tannama rupa charitadi sukirtananu smrityo kramena, which is kind of the essence of, in a nutshell, everything she said at the beginning. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote this whole essence of advice in the form of a bhajan that we can sing together. So please join us if you can stay. I'll do a screen share. And I wanted to offer Dandavat Pranam to Syamarani Didi. Thank you so much for your association today and helping us to better understand and serve these beautiful teachings of our Guru Varga, Guru Parampara.
You already understand better than me.
Oh my gosh. Hare Krishna. I think everyone who's in our regular group can see the difference between an ordinary struggling sadhak and a very, very, I won't say anything because she's present here and she wouldn't appreciate it. But I think we can all see the glowing, radiant effects of a sincere sadhak in speaking Harikatha. So, Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyascha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.
Dandavat Pranam Syamarani Didi, Srimati.
Dandavat Pranam to you all. Champa, Dandavat.
I miss you so much.
Actions speak louder than words.
Come on over.
Okay, I will.
Can we have books, Nyanrati?
Yes. Okay, so you'll love this bhajan.
What page? What's the number?
Hari Hai Shri Rupa Goshai. This is page 199 if you have a book with you. Can you just hold this?
You have a good audience there for the membership class.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a sweet audience, such a sweet group.
Maybe Rupa Mandri, could you read the English while we're getting set up here? Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Hari Hai Shri Rupa Goshai, based on the 8th verse of... Can you guys hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay. Based on the 8th verse of Shri Upadeshamrita. This song is by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Oh Hari, Srila Rupa Goswami, in the form of Sri Guru, whispered this advice into my ear. Understand my words, O beggar of Nam, and you will attain rati, affection, for chanting the name. Very carefully engage your tongue and mind in Sri Krishna's name, form, attributes, and pastimes, in accordance with the gradual method given in the scriptures. Reciting in Braj as a Raganuga Bhakta, engage in Smaran and Kirtan of the Lord. Indeed, spend all your time in this way. Accept this as the essence of all instructions. Alas, O Srila Rupa Goswami, when will you mercifully bestow residence in Braj upon this wretched soul? You are Ragatmika, a resident of Braj whose heart is filled with spontaneous attachment to Krishna, and the wish of this servant is to follow in your footsteps.
Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Rupa Goswami ki jai.
Shiksha dila more kaane,
glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to the assembled Vaishnavas. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, dear friends. We will see you next Monday for Sri Manah Shiksha, Divine Instructions to the Mind. If you want to practice Bhakti Yoga. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Radhe. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. Jai Shri Radhe.